Committee on Monday the 1st of December 2025. The time is 10:30 a.m. I am Councillor Thomas Sneath, Chairman of the committee, and to my right we have Councillor Carl Edgusagowski, Vice Chairman of the committee. We are also joined by various officers from Planning, Democratic and Legal Services. Can I remind you that this meeting is being broadcast live via the County Council website, and with this in mind, I would like to welcome members of the public and press watching live. As the meeting is being streamed in the usual way, I would like to remind you that your comment will remain accessible online and may be reported by the media. We have had our usual fire alarm test this morning, with no further fire drills planned for today, so in the event of the fire alarm sounding, it probably will be a real one, so please exit the chamber through the rear doors, out through the reception and into the car park. Can I remind everyone to ensure that their mobile phones, laptops and iPads are on silent for the duration of the meeting. Also, may I remind you that the hearing loop is now active and that if a member is to leave the chamber during an item, this will preclude them from being able to vote on that item. Requests to speak will be collected by the Vice Chairman. We now move to the formal part of the meeting. Item 1 is apologies for absence, replacement councillors. Andrew, do we have any apologies?
We've received apologies today from Councillor Mutt Bowles, with Councillor Stephen Bunny replacing him for this meeting only. We've also received apologies from Councillors Ray Whittaker, Mansour Hassan and Alistair Arundel, with no replacements. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2 is declarations of councillor interests. This is an opportunity for members to declare any pecuniary or other interests raised to today's agenda. Do members wish to declare any? Thank you very much. We move to item 3, which is to approve and sign the minutes of the last meeting held on the 3rd of November 2025 as a correct and accurate record. The minutes can be found on pages 5 to 20 of the agenda pack. Do any members have any comments or suggest amendments regarding the accuracy of those minutes? No. Do we have a proposer? Councillor Winhurst proposed. Seconder? Councillor Bean. We'll now take to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Any against? Any abstentions? One abstention. Thank you very much. Those minutes have been approved and I will sign them at the end of the meeting. We now move to the first part of our agenda, where the committee will consider the report and objections to the executive proposal for proposed proposed traffic regulation orders and speed limit orders. First item 4.1, the B1188 Digby to Ruskington proposed speed limit reduction. Over to you, Jan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. This first report relates to proposed 40-mile-an-hour limit on the B1188 between Digby and Ruskington. There's an historic 50-mile-an-hour speed limit here owing to an accident reduction scheme many years ago. There are 2 sections of 50 remaining as shown in blue, and we've been requested by Digby Parish Council to investigate their reduction. We've checked them against the policy, and with mean speeds of 38 and 43 miles per hour, these meet the policy criteria for a 40-mile-an-hour limit, and we've subsequently consulted on those proposals. Excuse me. And we've had one objection from a resident of one of the villages who states that the resource would have been better dedicated to creating cycle facilities between villages rather than a speed limit. Given the number, the accidents which are shown in Appendix A, and the fact that both these sections meet the policy criteria for a 40-mile-an-hour limit, the recommendation is that the objection is overruled so that the scheme may be introduced as advertised. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions?
Councillor Wimhurst, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sharon, for your report. Having a look at this, I mean, I tend to feel like I'd rather be on the side of the objector with this. I mean, there doesn't look to be any houses along that north stretch where they want to reduce the speed limit. Whilst there has been 3, I think, minor collisions there. I mean, it's only 3 over 5 years. Is that correct?
Yes, it's 3 over 5 years, 2 serious and 1 slight.
I mean, I think there might just be outliers. I mean, it's not, 3 over 5 years, it's not even 1 a year. I mean, I wouldn't be happy to support this proposal, or likewise adding a cycle lane in. I mean, it should be down to people's due diligence. If they can see a cyclist, if they're safe to overtake. If not, don't. But I would like to maybe move to send this to the portfolio holder for highways for sort of final approval or rejection. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Verdon, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sorry, Councillor Wimhurst, I don't agree with you in this particular regard. I note that the speed limit alternates between 40 and 50 miles an hour, and that this request has come from Digby Parish Council. I know that 3 injury accidents that have been reported probably mean that there have been a significant number that haven't been reported, and I note that the sort of terminology is 3 reported injury accidents. I personally feel this is a sensible solution, and I'm happy to support, but obviously wait to see what others do. Thank you.
Thank you. Hill. Councillor Hill, please.
Well, I actually agree with Councillor Wimhurst here. That I don't think I would be in favour of this proposal. I'm correct in saying the sole reason justification for this is the average speed which has been measured. I think I did ask last time that if the sole justification is the average speed, we don't seem to see the details of that. And if that's the, and I thought so it would have been helpful I could repeat. Hopefully I won't have to email people next time that if we could see those a summary of those speeds. There is no, and I just whether it's 40 and alternating has nothing to do with it. And I just think personally, I would not support this on the basis of there's no properties at all on this stretch of road, and I would agree with Councillor Wimhurst.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Overton, please.
Thank you. The problem with waiting for a footpath is it could take years, and it's a different budget. So I support the idea of asking for a footpath or cycle path rather along here. I think that is it's certainly a really good idea, and we should ask for that. But knowing how difficult it is in the budget to get these in place, it's not really an alternative. It might be something we want to do as well. So I think looking at it carefully, I would support what's written on the page, because I think it is one of those situations where we do have the opportunity of supporting it or not, and because it's borderline, if you like, it's on the 38. So I would, on balance, I would support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we got anyone else wish to speak?
Thank you. Difficult one, isn't it? Because, and I suppose it's the joy of being a chairman here. On one half, we have, you can't blame cyclists for being on the road. There is nowhere else for them to go. We also, the speed, I completely understand where Councillor Hill is coming from, when we're looking at speeds. If people are only travelling that speed anyway on that road, putting a speed limit in, forcing people to do that just seems counterintuitive. We're putting up speed limits in places. However, we have an opportunity, as Councillor Overton has just stated, there's no footpath there. We have an opportunity to reduce the speed limit down to ensure that at least everybody is travelling at a lower speed. I think on balance, from the comments that have been made, I'm happy to propose that the committee notes the contents of the report.
Seconded.
Wonderful. Report and the speed limit order details in Appendix A. We have given it due regard to the objections received to the proposed order, and recommend to the Executive Councillor for Highways and Transport to approve the proposed order. It has been seconded by Councillor Overton. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That recommendation has been carried. We move on to the second item, 4.2, Gainsborough, Saunders Road, proposed waiting restrictions and bus stop clearway. Over to you, Jan.
Thank Thank you. So, Sanders Road on the Heapham Road Industrial Estate serves a large number of businesses, and concerns have been raised with us about on-street parking, disrupting visibility out of the accesses, obstructing access in and out of the accesses, and obstructing the use of the bus stops. Excuse me. So we've therefore consulted on the proposals shown in appendices A and B, extensive double yellow lines, mainly around the fact that the parking tends to accumulate around the centre of the road, and the aim of the proposal is to spread that parking more evenly throughout the road so that it causes less disruption. We have received 3 objections. There's concerns about where staff may park for some of the businesses. There's concerns about the impact on deliveries from the highway, and also on displacement of parking up to the neighbouring streets. Our view is that the parking restrictions will manage parking more effectively. Deliveries, unloading and loading can still take place on the double yellow lines, as this is exempted in the order, so this will not impact on businesses. And it's therefore proposed that the objections are overruled so that the scheme may be introduced as advertised. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions?
Councillor Wimhurst, please.
Thank you, Chair. Knowing this place really quite well, I think this is a really quite a good idea for this industrial estate in this area. So I'd have no problem with moving to accept the officer recommendations on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bunny, please.
Thank you. Like Councillor Wimhurst, I know the area well. Having gone down there, there are problems with visibility, and like a lot of our industrial estates, that is the case. And I think anything to do to ease that would help. Clearly, when it comes to where people should park, there is parking available. Sometimes it's just that people want to go the shorter distance. So I think, like Councillor Wimhurst, quite happy to support the scheme.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you. I did have just to clarify some questions, which I'm sure Jan has already furnished me with the answers, but just to be clear that the bus clearway can be parked in outside of the operating hours. Disabled parking is still available for up to 3 hours on the double yellows. So I think every mitigation has gone in to enable those who can't get closer. If they have a disability, there is actual disabled parking provision there for them. I'm very happy, therefore, then to take Councillor Wimhurst as a proposer that the recommendation, so that the committee notes the content of the report and has proposed traffic regulation order details at Appendix A, have given due regard to the objections received as detailed in the report, and recommends to the Executive Councillor for Highways and Transport to support the proposed order. Councillor Bunny, were you happy to second that? That has been proposed and seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Yeah, looks unanimous. Thank you very much. That recommendation has been carried. Now move to the next item, 4.3 in North Highcombe, Tiber Road, proposed waiting restrictions. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you. So this report covers an extension to existing restrictions we introduced on Tiber Road a few years ago to ensure that the approach to the signalised junction with Newark Road was kept clear. It's been brought to our attention that parking beyond the existing restrictions is resulting in obstruction to forward visibility and traffic flow. We therefore propose to extend them as shown in red in Appendix A, and we've received 5 objections. Residents have some limited off-street parking areas to the rear of the properties, and this only allows in some cases for 1 vehicle, and therefore residents believe that on-street parking will be required to alleviate pressure for parking. There's concerns that parking will be displaced elsewhere in the estate and cause similar problems. And it's also suggested that on-street lay-bys are created within the existing verges to provide for parking need in the highway. These concerns are noted, but during busy periods the traffic will back up from the signalised junction along Tiber Road up to Romulus Way, and therefore it's important that to keep traffic flowing at all times, parking is restricted for a longer length along Tiber Road. It's therefore recommended in the report that the objections are overruled so that the scheme may be introduced as advertised. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a local division member for Highcombe Forum, Councillor Stephen Rowe, to address the committee. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought it was important to come here today as a local member to speak on this. I was involved in the original double yellow lines and at the time suggested that they were done longer and was told that that probably wasn't a good idea. It appears that it now is a good idea and I must say I fully support it. I do feel sorry for some of the houses that are going to be affected by this. They're suffering from what is poor design of an estate where their parking isn't easily accessible or quickly accessible, which is unfortunate. But we do get backed up along that road in both directions. We have a situation where people have to cross from one side of the road to drive in the wrong direction on an extra piece of road. There's what I would call two sleeping policemen where everybody tries to dive through the middle of them. So you get them on the wrong side of the road trying to drive between two policemen to get round some vehicles that are already there. I quite like the idea of looking at that estate to see if lay-bys can be looked at. I appreciate it's all about money at the end of the day, but I think it's something I can discuss with my local highways officer. So just to sum up, I'm here to support it. It's necessary. The traffic needs to flow safely through that area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers?
Councillor Vernon, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It's always really invaluable to hear the ward members' viewpoints, so thank you very much for coming and expressing that. From my point of view, there are two main parts to this report. The part that obviously we're trying to encourage people to use public transport and buses are being delayed. We need to do our part to prevent delays. The other section is that large vehicles are being obstructed, and I note that we refer to sort of obviously large vehicles. These could include fire appliances and other emergency vehicles, and I think it's imperative that we, again, sort of make sure that those have access. I, again, like Councillor Rowe, have considerable sympathy for those residents, particularly those that do drive large vehicles. I note that there is a height restriction of 2.2 metres and that larger vehicles have to park on the road. Again, as Councillor Rowe says, this is partly back to the design of the estate in the first place, but unfortunately on this occasion I don't really feel that there is any alternative but to approve this application, mostly to ensure that emergency vehicles can get by and the traffic is through flowing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Much appreciated. Again, I agree with my colleague. It's always interesting to hear the local councillors' comments on this because they come with some local knowledge, and that's always important to hear. Again, I can share the concerns by those local residents because it is going to create some disruption and some inconvenience, and that is a problem for them. However, the wider picture needs to be taken into context here. And traffic flow needs to improve at this particular busy junction, and road safety needs to be taken very seriously. And as Councillor Rowe refers to, there's lessons to learn in the future regarding development of these type of heavily populated estates. We can learn from where it's gone wrong in the past. So if the recommendation's been moved, I'm happy to second this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Overton, please.
It's fine. I think it's been said. Thank you.
Councillor Wimhurst.
Yeah, likewise. I was just going to. Yeah, everything's already been said on this, so thank you.
Councillor Bean.
Hello, yes, thank you. I'd also like to just second Councillor Rowe's opinion. I know this estate quite well, and I would agree it's badly designed, the roads are minimum width, and we really should take this into account moving forward when approving other developments of this type. But apart from that, I would like to say that I will also agree with the recommendation.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Hill, please.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to speak up for the residents who are about to have on-street parking removed outside their houses. Yes, it's a poor design, and again, on the view that, oh, we don't want too many cars. I mean, I don't know how many of these households have more than one car. Almost certainly a lot of them do. And I see there is the parking at the rear, which looks a bit limited. It comes down to the poor design of the estate. Could I ask why because obviously the second bit of traffic calming, the no parking extends beyond the southern bit. Can I ask why that is? Why we're going a little bit further? Because it's not both sides. And frankly, I'm not inclined to support the proposal. I think it's going to go through anyway, but I do think that the residents here, it's not their fault that the design of the estate is poor. But could I ask why it's just extending beyond the second traffic calming proposal?
Thank you, Councillor Hill. I believe that we're trying to balance here between putting in the minimum amount of restriction so we disrupt residents the least. We often stagger the end of restrictions so that it just gives us that little bit extra that we can leave unrestricted.
I'm not sure I understand that, because obviously there is some houses, it's actually extending to where houses are, where the other bit on that side of the road, there are no houses, they're just trees. I don't really understand the reasoning there.
I didn't design the scheme. If you want me to ask the officer.
It seems odd that you know, in one sense it would seem fair that you have one side no parking, which would then clear the road a bit, and then you're going just beyond there, which I'm still trying to understand why you know, those houses, those two houses there will have no parking outside their house. For what reason?
I think it's fair to say that the highway is a public asset, and so nobody has a right to park outside their house.
Well, I understand that. You're sounding, I'm not a communist, so I do think that we should allow people some freedom. So I don't agree with that. You know, perhaps we'll stop everybody doing anything on the highway without us sitting here deliberating. But I take the point. But I just wonder, I won't support the proposal, and certainly not on those lines.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Rowe.
I don't know if it helps. The houses on the left-hand side, as you were looking through, I think their access is off Newark Road. I don't think the access is off Tiber Road, so therefore parking outside there is not an issue.
Thank you, everybody. I'm inclined to actually put a modification in. It does mean we're going to have another proposer and seconder. I would like the executive officer to actually explore looking to see whether lay-bys could be introduced. The answer is probably going to be no, but it would be nice for it to be explored into, if it hasn't been looked into, to provide that off-road parking for those residents that are now going to have it removed. And also, I think Councillor Hill does bring a very valid point. Why is the southern extension that little bit extra after the sleeping policeman? It could stop at that point. I don't see the reason for it. So in that case, if everybody was in agreement, I would like to accept the officer's recommendation, but with those two caveats, that at least they be looked at and explored, and if possible, then could be implemented and a change, if that would be acceptable to the members of the chamber. Councillor Bunny.
Could you just repeat the two caveats, please?
Yes, I would like the executive officer to...
It would help with the map on the board as well, if possible.
Sorry, the executive councillor, I would like them to look at possibly installing lay-bys for the residents that have now had their on-street parking removed because of the double yellows, and also explore reducing the double yellow lines to the southern side that Councillor Hill had just mentioned, why it is not, you know, you'll see that it's been extended, just reduce it slightly if possible.
Right. So just to confirm, you're asking for them to explore the possibility of lay-bys. You're not putting a particular site into the motion.
No, I'd like them to explore it. Thank you. Councillor Vernon.
Sorry, Chairman. I'm not entirely sure about whether that should be added in at this stage. I think if there are concerns regarding the length of the proposed weighting restrictions, then that would have to be redesigned as a whole. I'm not sure that we could just do it off the hoof here and go, well, let's just stop it here instead or there. Although I'd welcome, obviously, Jan's viewpoint on that. Regarding the lay-by, I'm certainly not adverse to that being investigated further, but I don't consider that to be a part of the application that's in front of us today. So I'm afraid I wouldn't support that, sorry. Although I have every sympathy for the residents, I hasten to add.
Councillor Hill.
Well, yes, I think we need to remember it's not our decision. We are merely recommending to the executive portfolio. So I think your proposal is bang on, Councillor Sneath, Chairman, because we support, I understand what you're saying, support the recommendations, but exploration of whether, you know, we put the parking in and whether the route is slightly amended. I don't see the problem with that. I mean, it might be that it has to come back again if there is a slight change in terms of the length of the restriction, but apart from that, it doesn't need to come back, so I would support your proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Vernon.
Sorry, Chairman. I just need to seek some clarity then. So basically, we are saying that the application should be sent to the Executive Councillor for Highways for approval or rejection, but we're not specifically approving today the application that's in front of us, because sort of I don't see how we can make a decision and push that to the Executive Councillor for Highways based on the proposal that I've proposed this morning. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm adverse to another proposal, but I don't feel that we can vote on what we've already proposed and then delegate it to the Executive Councillor for Highways to investigate lay-bys and the reduction in distance. I may need some help. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vernon. I think what we can do is we can ask the executive member to decide whether or not they would recommend that we bring back to this committee a minor modification to reduce the length of the restrictions. Because it's a short length, we could potentially do that, and it's a lesser, it's less onerous, so we could bring that back and reduce the restrictions as requested for probably about 10 metres or so, I think, looking at the plan.
Sorry, I'm being a pain this morning. Can I just clarify what the timeframes would be for that? Because obviously we have a scheme in front of us that's been assessed and looked at, and again, sort of, we're obviously going to have to go back and potentially redesign it, and I wonder, obviously, because I presume that as a minor modification it would also have to be reconsulted with members of the public?
No, the minor modification allows us to circumvent that reconsultation, and because it's a change to the what's been advertised, the committee can approve a small change by that route. So I would expect it to come back in February. Yeah. I think so, yeah.
Sorry, everyone. It's just, I think we have an opportunity here for at least to the executive to actually, councillor, to look at this and see if there is any modification. It's a modification of, we will accept the policy, accept the proposal, but we would like them to explore, if possible, the possibility with the minor changes. I'm quite happy to, it's just a minor change, you know, a couple of metres, if possible, without it having to come back to us. The lay-by, again, it's just, you know, it could be a case of we could take the lay-by out and ask the executive to have a look at it and come back to us at a different time when allowable. So I'm seeking guidance.
Yeah, well, you did propose. I think, firstly, the lay-by has nothing to do with TROs, so that's irrelevant. And what we're saying here is the removal of a short stretch. Doesn't need any, you don't need any design to just remove something. So it's pretty straightforward to me. I would support your proposal and suggest we go to the vote, because we're obviously clearly not all agreeing.
Wonderful. Well, as it's been proposed, and I will be seconding it, we'll take it to a vote. And so I would like to propose that the committee notes the contents of the report and proposed traffic regulation order as detailed in Appendix A, have given due regard to the objections received as detailed in the report, and recommends the Executive Council for Highways and Transport to modify the proposed order with the changes to investigate whether lay-bys can be installed where the parking has been removed, and a small reduction of the double yellow lines to the end of the southern part of the Appendix A proposition, which has been proposed by Councillor Hill. I will happily second that. Could we take that to a vote, please? All those in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? Thank you. That recommendation has been carried with modification. Thank you. We move on to the final traffic item, which is 4.4, in Skegness, Richmond Drive, proposed waiting restrictions and mandatory school keep clear markings. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you, Chairman. So this report covers an area which has been covered by an advisory school safety zone for many years. Over time, this has become disregarded, and parking is taking place within the area covered by the zone. We have a school crossing patrol operating near the junction with Denham Close, as shown in Appendix A, and this parking is obstructing the operation of that patrol and thereby jeopardising safety for them and pedestrians. We've proposed a variety of enforceable restrictions, and we've received one objection on the basis that these restrictions will cause inconvenience to families, mean that they have to park further away, and therefore children will have to walk across the road probably more times, cross more junctions in order to get to school, and this will increase danger to them. This scheme will allow us to enforce on parking in the area, and therefore hopefully will deter it and will promote safety throughout the area outside the school, and we therefore recommend that the objection is overruled so that we may introduce restrictions as advertised. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments, please?
Councillor Wimhurst, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Jan, again for your report here. On looking at it, it looks quite reasonable. Well, you know, we've got a school there and everything else, and I think it'd just be sensible to move this and go along with the officer's recommendations in this instance. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vernon, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I completely concur with Councillor Wimhurst's comments. I almost feel sort of a bit of deja vu. We seem to have these at most meetings. I think in this particular case, as in others we've considered, when it gets to the point where safety of children getting to school is compromised, I absolutely support, and I'm happy to second Councillor Wimhurst's proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Bunny, please.
Thank you. Basically, what I wanted to say has been said. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we any other speakers?
Thank you very much. I'd just like to say thank you to the officers for actually looking at the proposal as a whole, and not just on the school, but they've gone further afield to look at the implications. And so I'm really pleased to see that it's been looked at further afield and considered all the other residents. It has been recommended by Councillor Wimhurst that the committee notes the contents of the report, and the proposed traffic regulation order detailed in Appendix A has been given due regard to the objections received as detailed in the report. The recommends to the Executive Councillor for Highway and Transport that the proposed be approved, has been seconded by Councillor Vernon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Yep, that's a full house. Thank you very much. That recommendation has been carried. We now move to next agenda item of the meeting is item 5.1, which is an online application for residential development of up to 70 dwellings with access and associated infrastructure at Cathedral Quarry, east of Riceholme Road, Lincoln, as submitted by the Lindham Group Limited and the corporate body of the Cathedral Church. The report's recommendation is that following consideration of the relevant development plan policy and the comments received through consultation and the publicity of the recommendation on completion of the Section 106 agreement, that conditional outline planning permission be granted. I would like to invite... Sorry, Councillor Murray.
Chairman, I have to declare an interest in this and take no part.
Thank you very much. That will be noted in the minutes. I would now like to invite Natalie Deere to introduce the report. Over to you, Natalie.
Yeah, sorry, just moving around so I can address you directly. Okay, so this is an application that's been submitted by Lindham Group Limited and the corporate body of the Cathedral Church. It's an outline application for residential development of up to 70 dwellings with access and infrastructure at Cathedral Quarry, east of Riceholme Road, Lincoln. For the benefit of those members of the committee who may not be so familiar with outline applications, an outline application is one which seeks to establish the principle of a development but doesn't necessarily provide all of the details of the development. In this case, the only details which are included within the application relate to the proposed new access off Riceholme Road. All of the other details, excuse me, that is the layout, the appearance, the scale and landscaping, are what is known as reserve matters. That is, they are matters to be dealt with at a later stage if outline planning permission is granted. Cathedral Quarry was worked as a quarry for over 100 years. The most recent mineral planning permission at Cathedral Quarry was granted in 2012 and was for the extraction of limestone for specialist building uses in connection with the repair of Lincoln Cathedral. Cathedral Quarry is still within the restoration and aftercare period associated with this 2012 planning permission, and it's for this reason that the outline planning application has been submitted to Lincolnshire County Council, as residential development proposals such as this would usually be dealt with by the district, borough, or as in this case, the City Council. When this application was originally submitted, it was described as being for up to 75 dwellings. However, through discussions with the applicant, this was amended in March 2025 for being up to 70 dwellings to better reflect what could be achieved within the site. Could I have the next slide, please? Oh, and the one after. Thank you. Whilst this is an outline application and the proposed layout of the development is a reserve matter, that is, it would be considered at a later stage if planning permission was granted, the applicant has provided this indicative layout plan to demonstrate that it's possible to deliver 70 dwellings within the site. This drawing is not one for which approval is sought or recommended, but it's just provided for illustration. Planning permission is sought, however, for a proposed new access into the site off Riceholme Road. This can be seen in the northwest part of the site. Oh, are we able to just go back one? That's all right, thank you. Proposing the northwest part of the site. This is an access proposed for motor vehicles, cyclists and pedestrians. Originally, 2 further pedestrian and cyclist access points were proposed off Riceholme Road, but these have been removed from the proposals to overcome concerns raised by Lincolnshire County Council Highways, Lincolnshire Police and local residents. As I've said, the application site is at Cathedral Quarry, which lies to the east of Riceholme Road, and that's to the north of the city centre. The site is surrounded by residential properties and is adjacent to a petrol filling station on Riceholme Road. Could we go forward 2 slides, please? Thank you. The site is approximately 2.93 hectares in size and has trees along the east and west boundaries, which are the subject of a tree preservation order. And that's what this plan on the screen shows. There's also a Grade 2 listed building to the north of the application site on the opposite side of Riseholme Road. Could we have the next slide, please? Thank you. The vast majority of the site is allocated in the Central Lincolnshire Local Plan under Policy S77 for residential development of approximately 70 dwellings. In addition to that, a small area of the site in the northeast corner is safeguarded under Policy M11 in the Lincolnshire Minerals and Waste Local Plan for building stone. This application has been the subject of 2 rounds of formal consultation, one when it was submitted in 2022 and the other in March 2025 when the description of development was amended. Although this is an outline application and therefore full details of the proposal are not known at this stage, there are a range of issues to be considered as set out in paragraphs 22 to 106 of the committee report. I won't go through all of these now, but I'll focus on the principle of the development and the issues which have attracted a number of objections. As I've said, the vast majority of the application site is allocated for residential development in the Central Lincolnshire Local Plan. It's therefore established in planning policy that the principle of residential development on this site is acceptable. Policy S77, which allocates the site, contains a number of requirements, including but not limited to delivering a net gain in biodiversity on site and satisfying the requirements of the County Council mineral planning conditions. As set out in the committee report, the proposed development won't deliver a net gain in biodiversity on site, but instead proposes to deliver a mix of on and off-site biodiversity, including through the purchase of credits from a local habitat bank. Whilst this wouldn't fully comply with the provisions of the policy, the delivery of up to 70 dwellings on this site isn't necessarily compatible with delivering biodiversity net gain, particularly given that the approved restoration scheme for the quarry is to nature conservation. There is therefore a conflict also with the provisions of the mineral planning conditions in this regard. The impact on ecology was one of the main issues raised in objection by local residents. However, it is considered that as long as the net gain in biodiversity is secured, and you'll see that there's a condition recommended to achieve this, it would be difficult to justify a refusal of planning permission because this is an allocated site, albeit that there is an inherent conflict within the allocation policy itself. Another issue raised in objection by local residents relates to the impact of the proposed development on the trees within the site, which are the subject of a tree preservation order. Discussions have taken place with the applicant in relation to this matter, given that the layout of the site is not one of the matters to be considered at this stage. And the applicant's tree consultant has provided confirmation that it would be possible to deliver the development whilst retaining and protecting the trees which are the subject of the tree preservation order. It's considered that these trees are worthy of protection and retention and the proposed development, and in order to ensure this, you'll see that it's recommended that if outline planning permission is granted, it's subject to a condition requiring the details of a method statement and a tree management and monitoring plan to secure this. Concerns were also raised by local residents regarding visual amenity and the protection of residential amenities. Given that this is an outline application with all matters reserved except for access, no details are available at this stage, and so it's not possible to assess what the impacts of the proposal would be on amenities. However, it is considered that there is sufficient space within the site to allow for a development which would protect both the amenities of existing residents and those of the potential future residents of the site. If outline planning permission is granted, these details would be the subject of a subsequent application. Policy S22 of the Central Lincolnshire Local Plan sets out the need to deliver affordable housing. The application site lies within an area designated to deliver 25% affordable housing. As can be seen in paragraphs 64 to 67 of the committee report, the applicant doesn't propose to deliver 25% affordable housing on this site, but instead proposes 6 affordable houses, which is the equivalent of 8.6% on the basis of 70 dwellings being delivered. Whilst this is below the 25% requirement, policy S22 does allow for a lower amount of affordable housing in circumstances where the scheme cannot viably deliver the 25% requirement. In this case, the applicant has demonstrated that the proposed development can only viably deliver 6 affordable units out of the 70 dwellings. But it's recommended that if planning permission is granted, it's subject to a Section 106 legal agreement to secure the affordable housing, but that it also includes a review mechanism so that when the full details of the development are known, if a greater proportion of affordable housing can be delivered, it would be secured at that time. The loss of open space was raised in a number of objections received. It should be noted that there's currently no public access to this site, and so there's no loss of public open space. The applicant has demonstrated that a policy-compliant level of open space could be delivered within the site as part of the proposed development and off-site through a financial contribution towards playing fields. Overall, whilst there are a number of aspects of this proposed development which are not fully in accordance with planning policy, on balance, given that this is a site which is allocated for residential development of approximately 70 dwellings, the applicant has committed to delivering an overall biodiversity net gain of 10%. The protected trees can be retained. As much affordable housing as it is viable to deliver will be secured, and the development is capable of meeting other sustainability and amenity requirements of the development plan. It's recommended that outline planning permission is granted, subject to the applicant entering into a Section 106 legal agreement regarding the affordable housing, a playing fields financial contribution, and an NHS Integrated Care Board financial contribution, and a suite of planning policies as set out in the committee report and as amended in the committee update with respect to conditions 19 and 20. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. We now have 3 registered speakers. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes to give their statement to the committee. Following their statement, members of the committee can ask clarification questions to the speaker. Once the committee has had the opportunity to ask those questions, the speaker then retires to be an observer for the remainder of the item. I would therefore like to invite the first registered speaker in opposition to the application, Suzanne Knock, to address the committee.
Thank you. I would like to start by thanking the officer responsible for the report and to say I appreciate the considerable work involved. Since 2017, I have campaigned for the housing development on the quarry site to maintain the ecology of the site, particularly the trees. There have been 2 petitions and, despite repeated objections from the Cathedral Works Department and Linden Construction, a TPO is in place. These trees were planted approximately 25 years ago, and illustration number 1 shows their early development. I am pleased with the report before you, especially the conditions to ensure that the trees remain protected. So why have I come here today? I have 3 points. Firstly, because despite all of this, the planning response note dated August 2025, produced by Linden Construction and the Cathedral in support of their application, still states that our current proposal is to have the site levelled within a 1 metre tolerance of the surrounding area, and this continues to be our position, proving that they are prepared not only to ignore everything that has happened over the last 8 years, but also to ignore a report which they commissioned to assess how the removal of the bund would affect the trees within the TPO, and this is included in their application. It identifies 15 trees and wooded areas associated with the bund. It states that only 2 trees would be unaffected by the removal of the bund, 11 would require the excavation of the bund around them to be limited, and 2 would require the bund to be left totally undisturbed. Their proposal ignores their own report. Secondly, I'm here because, because misunderstandings about planning lead to mistakes being taken. Your second page illustrates the before and after on another site on Riceholme Road, run by Lindham Construction. The plans show the hedge was to be retained, but it was not. Illustration number 3 is of a section of the trees on the western bund now fully mature. Trees would be more difficult to replace than hedges, so let's not have any misunderstandings about what is agreed here. Finally, the arguments about not providing the minimum level of social housing or not meeting 10% biodiversity net gain on site or not keeping the bund and the trees are about it not being considered to be viable. Why? Because of the expense of filling in the quarry. Well, the cathedral profited from the extraction of thousands of tons of limestone worth hundreds of thousands of pounds. Why should the residents of Lincoln be made to pay for this by losing their social housing and their green spaces? So the reason I'm here on behalf of the residents is to ask you to accept the recommendations and to ensure that these conditions are truly binding. And I'd be pleased to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Councillor Vernon.
Chairman, I have a question, but it is to do with the process, which then may subsequently affect my next question, if that's okay. We are obviously today dealing with the outline planning application. Where is the reserved matters application going to go? Is that going to go to City Council or is it going to come back to us?
It would come to the County Council.
So I need to sort of be absolutely crystal clear on this for obviously everybody who's come here today. Today, we are establishing whether the principle of development is acceptable or not of up to 70 houses, and we are sort of considering whether the access is acceptable. All of the other matters will be considered at the next meeting, i.e. the bund protecting the trees, the affordable housing percentages, which quite frankly, I mean, yeah, and visibility. But yeah, so I just want to be clear on that because it wouldn't be fair. Okay.
So yes, it's just the outline application today, including the access. All of the other matters are reserve matters, which would be subject to subsequent applications being made to the County Council.
So thank you very much indeed for your comments, but obviously we're not able to consider the points you've raised today, but they would be considered as part of the reserve matters application, is my understanding then.
The detail of those comments, yes, there are a suite of conditions, as you'll have seen, that require those details to be submitted in addition to the reserve matters.
Thank you.
Councillor Hill.
Thank you. I mean, thank you very much for coming and very eloquently put. My understanding is we are talking about the numbers as well. So just clarify, as an objector, are you content with the proposed numbers, or would you have you any views on the proposed potential up to 70 houses?
Right. Yeah, I think that it is too many for the site, but I understand that this is going to be considered later, and I do share Councillor Lee's concerns, which I know she's going to speak about with regards to social housing. But I'm here today just to make sure that we're sure what we're agreeing to, and nothing is then kind of.
So I need clarification, because are we talking about potential numbers of houses or not today? Are we debating that or not? Because I thought we are. Can I just be clear what actually we are deciding today?
So the decision is whether to grant outline planning permission for up to 70 dwellings. The decision as to how many dwellings there will be would be a reserve matter once the layout and design is known. But yes, you're making a decision in relation to the up to 70.
So if we agree with the recommendations, it could be 70. If we don't, the applicant had the choice of either appealing or coming back with a lower number. Just so I understand exactly. That's what
correct.
I thought.
Yeah.
Councillor Bunny, please.
I think my matter was really to do with process again. I take what Councillor Crawley is saying. My question would be regarding the restoration project and so on. If that was to go by the date, would then that go back to the City Council or would it remain with the County Council? I don't know how long the programme is there for, but that would be my concern, that one authority could make one decision and somebody else would take it on and might not have agreed to the initial bit. In principle, I haven't made my mind up either way.
So the application, you're right, is made to the County Council because the site is within the restoration and aftercare period. If an application was to be made after that, then it would have gone to the city, or it would go to the City Council. But I could offer you some reassurance. I have been in discussion with the officers at the City Council throughout the process of dealing with this application. And so those discussions have taken place.
I understand that. My concern would be that, yes, we've got a set council at the moment, we've got a city council structure at the moment. All of that could change through elections, through local government reform, and you could end up, well, I suppose it's going to be a different authority anyway, but my concern would be that if someone says outline, fine, and then somebody else is going to do the reserves, it doesn't quite make sense to me. I think it should be the one group throughout as much as possible.
Sorry if I've led to a misunderstanding. If the County Council grant this outline planning permission, well, it would be subject to a limit on the time, just because of the time that is allowed to submit a reserve matter. But the reserve matter for this application would come back to the County Council.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Make sure the question is to Suzanne, because I know she sat there looking. So if you've got any more questions to officers, can we wait until afterwards? Councillor Overton.
Thank you. You're there as an objector today, but you've asked us to support this proposal, which surprises me, and that's why I think we should be considering all of those details. So I'm thinking, you've been asked about the 70 houses. Are there other things in there? You've mentioned the biodiversity on site. You've mentioned the trees in the bund. Which of these things, if we're not going to support this, we should not support it. If you want us to support, your messages are confusing. So could you be really clear about which things you're objecting to?
Okay. The final report that we received, we only received less than a week ago. And I'm here today because I'm concerned that the recommendations within the report, I'm for the report as it stands. If it's all tied down and it's delivered as it stands, given, as we've said, that there are a number of things that still to be decided. But if the report as it stands as an outline planning permission is agreed, then I'm saying, yes, I would agree to it. But I'm concerned that actually documents from Lindham and the Cathedral are saying that they still intend to level this within a metre of the surrounding area, which actually contradicts some of the things that are in the report. So I was objecting because of what Lindham said they were going to be doing. The subsequent report has actually said, well, we've got this covered, as it were. We're going to make sure that it doesn't happen. So that's why it's a strange situation to be in, because I'm saying, well, yes, I agree to this because it's only been out there for 1 week, but I still have concerns because of previous situations and previous documents that Lindham haven't actually changed their proposals on the way forward and what they see as being the viable option.
Thank you. So 70 dwellings, 140 cars, perhaps toing and froing every day through that junction, you'd be happy with?
No, because what I'm saying is it's actually saying that that is up to, and this is going to be something that then would be considered, as my understanding, in the full application.
Thank you. My concern is that later, when it comes to the full application, they'll say, well, it was already agreed, the outline for 70 houses, so there's no way you're going to have another go at changing it.
No.
So if you're going, I think what's really important, I'm talking in practice, I know in legislation, different, but in practice. So I would suggest that if we want to consider that whether that's the right number of houses for that site, bearing in mind that some of it should be for mineral extraction, You know, if you took out that area, then how many houses could you fit in? And also, I'm not very clear on what the density is there, but you probably don't know that either. Thank you.
Can I respectively ask that we wait for Councillor Lee to, because definitely we have obviously spoken and coordinated what we're speaking on. We've only got 6 minutes.
Thank you.
So I've gone on my 3, and I think it'd probably be a lot clearer once you've listened to what Councillor Lee has also got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other clarification questions? No? In which case, then thank you so much indeed. And now I'd like to invite Councillor Lee. You can stay there. You're more than welcome. You have 3 minutes when you wish to begin.
Thank you. Our community want to object to several aspects of this planned development, and I support the points that Susan Knox just made regarding its hugely negative environmental impact. We agree with the principle of housing on this land, but we feel 70 dwellings is much too dense, and I'd ask committee to reread the comments made previously by the City of Lincoln Planning Department in 2022. It's in page 64.20. They go into some detail, and they suggested then an indicative capacity of 40 dwellings. They now don't object to the current plan for 70. And I understand that the adoption of the Central Lincolnshire Local Plan could be responsible for that Damascene conversion, even though it's the same piece of land and that's almost double the number. We also feel if permission is granted today that this developer will be back asking for a greater number of dwellings, and that the final development in our community may well be very different to what you've got in front of you today. We feel that the suggested amount and type of affordable housing is an absolute travesty. The planning policy requirement is that 25% of housing should be affordable, and the developer initially offered just 4 homes, increasing that to 6 out of 70, which is just 8.6%. Further to that, the developer's suggestion that 4 dwellings should be shared ownership and just 2 for social rent isn't what our community needs. There are currently 2,178 people on the City Council housing register, with only 25% of those currently in council homes. And by my calculation, that means 1,633 people waiting who haven't been able to access social housing. So I hope that committee will agree locally we need as much of this housing to be for social rent as possible. And on that basis, I'd request that the whole of any affordable housing element should be for social rent. It should also be a far greater number of houses than 6, because 25% of 70 dwellings would provide 17 homes. We differ with the Highways assessment of this too. There are capacity issues on Rhizome Road. You get traffic build-up at BG Roundabout, going out to the bypass, and if a car wants to turn into Rhizome Road Garage. And as residents, we're aware of how difficult it is currently to get a GP. This is just going to make it worse, and we'd like to ask that the entire NHS ICB financial contribution will be spent in our GP practices and not transported elsewhere, as the net biodiversity gain is going to be. The outlined development plans before you today would have a hugely negative impact on our existing community. They're only about financial profit to the detriment of our community. I would actually ask committee to refuse them, but I can understand that may be difficult because of planning regulations. But if you are minded to grant, we would ask you to include all of the conditions which are listed from page 83 onwards, but with a variation in the type of affordable housing provided to ensure that it is all for social rent, plus an increase in the numbers, preferably of dwellings, because 6 is frankly shockingly low. And I'd like to thank Natalie too. She's been really good all the way along. She's kept us involved, informed, and I think this is a very good and a very thorough report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Do any members have any questions for the Division Councillor? No questions. We now move to the final registered speaker, the agent of the application, and speaking in favour, Robert Jays, to address the committee. You will have 3 minutes when you start speaking. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak before the committee today in support of our planning application. I would like to thank the planning officer for her work and welcome the officer's recommendation for approval. The application sites in a now redundant cathedral quarry on the Ermine estate in Uphill, Lincoln. It shares 4 boundaries with existing housing. Its proximity to existing shops, schools, services and transport links make it a suitable and efficient location for development, ensuring it meets the principles of sustainable growth. It is therefore no surprise that the site is allocated in the local plan for housing. Concerns have been raised during the planning process regarding the impact of the development on ecology and biodiversity on site. As is evidenced by the ecology report supporting the application, the site consists of predominantly bare earth, providing limited ecological value and no evidence of protected species on site. The application proposals include for a 10% gain in biodiversity through a mixture of on-site and off-site provision. The tree protection order on site was introduced during the planning process. We work with the City Council on the extent of the TPO, and the very nature of the order protects these trees from removal. The site has always been a quarry and is therefore not publicly accessible. Due to safety concerns, it is locked behind metal gates and palisade fencing and is not visible from any public vantage points. It therefore does not represent usable open space or visual amenity that would be lost should permission be granted. Concern has also been raised on the density of the scheme. The site is allocated in the local plan for up to 70 dwellings, with this application matching that allocation. Out of the total site area of 7.25 acres, 2.5 acres is included as open space on the illustrative layout, meaning over 30% of the site is precluded from building work in those layouts. The development is not very dense in real terms. By way of comparison, this proposal provides fewer than 10 homes per acre, whilst the housing site on the north on Sandal Street is almost double that at 18 homes per acre and still feels in keeping with the local area. The country is in the midst of a housing crisis, with housing delivery at an all-time low and continuing to slow. The application proposals represent a logical location for the delivery of 70 much-needed houses in a sustainable location that would make a noteworthy contribution to new housing development in the city. The site has supported the cathedral as a quarry site since 1889. If this permission is granted, proceeds from the sale will go directly towards the maintenance of Lincoln Cathedral, a vital landmark for both the city and the county. The cathedral is on the Historic England at-risk register, with a conservative estimate being that over £1.5 million worth of investment is needed to protect and maintain the cathedral each year for the foreseeable future. Planning permission and the onward sale of the land would make a vital contribution to this important work. I thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. Do any members have any questions? Councillor Oakton.
Thank you. You put on that provisional plan, that proposal, a lot of separate boxes for each dwelling. Are you thinking of doing all of them detached houses rather than a row? As you rightly pointed out, the difference in density, from normally a city street scene. So why have you put that kind of development proposal forward?
The indicative layout, I don't know if we could get it on screen so I could help talk about it. Is that possible? Sorry, thank you. Yeah, apologies. So as the planning officer has made clear, this is an outline, so really this is a very indicative layout. This is just showing what could be achieved on site. They're all semi-detached units, so that's why we get up to 70. They're not detached, they're all semi-detached units, so that's why we get up to 70. So that could well change. When somebody comes in with their reserve matters application, whether that's us or somebody else, then they can obviously change that and the numbers may go up or down. But they're semi-detached units, just showing that 70 could be achieved on site in a satisfactory way.
I see, thank you. Can you also tell me the portion of that which is allocated for mineral extraction? Which portion, which houses would you lose if you left the mineral extraction in place?
Quite simply put, I don't know the answers to that. That might be something that Natalie might be able to help with.
Right, okay, thank you. That's it, thank you.
Councillor Hill, please.
Thank you. Yes, I've got one or two questions. Coming back to the live mineral site, which is still part of the waste plan. So I can't see how effectively you would be landlocking that, unless I'm mistaken. So how in this proposal are you, your proposal, are you going to make sure that live limestone extraction site, which I presume is where the pond is, proposed pond is, how is that going to be accessed through a housing estate?
I think Natalie put it very well in her report that there is a contradiction in the policy. And
So
what
basically, in effect, you're saying tough, that's closed.
We're essentially saying that the allocated housing site is what should take precedence.
So, I mean, I'll probably need to ask later officer advice on that, because obviously we are going then contrary to the mineral plan, so I'll come back to that.
Okay.
Could I just ask, I mean, obviously can't ask you to divulge commercial sensitivities, but you're obviously saying, well, sorry, we can't do biodiversity net gain here. Sorry, we can't provide the city council requirement for 25% affordable housing. Sorry, we can't give you the open space you require, although I think you partially answered that. So why is that? Because this is a direct... Can you just explain? Because obviously I don't know the details, but obviously the cathedral currently owns the site, so it's not a question of somebody buying the site and then having to make the best of a deal. It's a direct sale. Can you just explain why you can't have fewer houses and make sure you tick all those boxes?
Yeah, I think it is a very complex site for housing development, so there are an awful lot of abnormal costs that we've got to take into account here to develop the site as we propose. So there's land raising, there's removal of the bunds, there's a demolition of a house to allow access, there's more than likely pumping stations for the drainage. So when you put all that together, the cost of the build is very high if you compared it to a traditional greenfield site. So Policy S22, as Natalie discussed, allows an element of viability discussion to show how much affordable housing you can propose on site or not. And so essentially the way that the calculation was produced ended up with the only being able to provide 6 dwellings. That was tested by an independent consultant, and that's how that figure came to pass. In terms of the landowner, it's difficult. I work for the Linden Group. I'm not directly responsible for the cathedral, but I know that they are kind of governed by the church commissioners, and they have a requirement to achieve best value as they can. And so this will go to the open market. And so until we know what the site can achieve on the open market as a sale, we don't know the value it's going to achieve. But what I think is quite good about the way that the permission has been proposed is that there is that review mechanism in place as part of the Section 106. So if some of these unviable elements of the scheme, some of the remediation doesn't actually need to come to pass in the future, if we get a higher land receipt than we may be envisaged in our viability work, then there is a review mechanism that allows us to go back and increase the amount of affordable housing, and both applicants are not at all adverse to that if it works for them on a viable basis. Sorry, that was a bit lengthy, wasn't it? Apologies.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor? Are you able, would you mind if Councillor Lee I will permit her to ask a question. Councillor Lee.
Sorry, I didn't see the other hand. I just wanted to ask at some point, can Natalie ask my question about all of the affordable housing being for social rent, every unit?
Sorry, is that, I don't necessarily understand the question. I mean, at the moment, if that was to you, apologies.
It's fine. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. It's appreciated. It's again to focus on affordable housing. In the report, it's clearly a dramatic reduction proposed in affordable housing. It's nowhere nearly 25%, is it? We can all agree on that. It's not even at 20%, is it? It's not close. And that's the major concern. The applicant, or spokesperson in favour of the applicant, spoke about the housing crisis. Well, clearly there are some housing crisis in certain areas, and this proposal regarding reducing affordable housing so dramatically does not help that. So the question is, when was this realised in your business plan? I believe in your last answer you mentioned a potential review of this. So are you seriously looking at some flexibility in this? Because it's a serious concern, this dramatic decrease in affordable housing.
Yeah, when I kind of talked about the housing crisis, I wasn't necessarily just focusing on affordable housing. I was talking on new housing delivery full stop. I think if you look across the city of Lincoln, there is very limited new housing being built, and therefore if that's the case, then yes, affordable levels are being reduced because there's just limited housing delivery. The housing market is stagnant and is slowing down, and therefore new planning applications are, then there's not a lot of them around at the moment, and therefore that's the kind of crisis I'm talking about. We will try and deliver 70 houses, not just affordable, they're houses for new build, for people to purchase, and I think that's still an important point. And absolutely, yeah, our viability shows the current situation, and that's the amount of affordable housing this site can deliver. But the review mechanism is there, we've accepted it, we agree with it, and therefore there is an element of flexibility going forward.
Thank you. Councillor Bean.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I hear a lot of talk about affordable housing, but what exactly is affordable housing? As far as I'm concerned, affordable housing should be housing that's affordable for first-time buyers, not executive-style affordable housing. And as far as I'm concerned, the reduction in the amount of affordable housing on this site is, quite frankly, completely unacceptable. Thank you.
I understand your frustrations. I think I've covered the point that there is that review mechanism in there. In terms of the affordable criteria, the affordable housing that we've put forward would be in line with the government guidance in terms of the affordable rent and the shared ownership. First-time homes are an affordable product, but they're not necessarily covered by national guidance. Again, we are flexible on what can come forward should it be available, but it has to be at a viable point for this scheme.
Thank you. Natalie, did you want to put forward Councillor Lee's question?
I've got a number of points in relation to the questions that have been raised, if you like, but if I start with Councillor Lee, apologies Councillor Lee, I'm sitting with my back to you. Oh, sorry. So in relation to the point about all of the affordable housing being for social rent, that isn't what has been assessed under this application. We've had a look at the viability assessment. So the applicant has submitted a viability assessment. The council have had that independently reviewed, and that doesn't concur that all of the affordable housing at this moment in time could be affordable, could be social rent. It's the proposal to have the review mechanism within the Section 106 agreement so that actually the type of affordable housing unit wouldn't be specified in the Section 106 agreement at this point. It would be once that review mechanism had taken place. So I can't guarantee at this moment that all of those houses would be social rent. I can tell you that at this moment in time, it wouldn't be viable for them all to be social rent. But through the review mechanism, depending on what information comes forward and what's proposed in the end, it might be possible, but I certainly can't give you any assurances now.
Sorry, just to clarify, you said you'd had it externally reviewed, and what did they say about the 6 houses?
They agreed that 6 houses was all that this development could viably deliver.
At this moment, not knowing the price of the sale of those houses?
That's on the basis of it being an outline application for up to 70 dwellings with a broad and indicative housing mix. Because it's an outline application, we don't have the details of what the housing mix will be at this point, so we don't know how many 2-bed, 3-bed or whatever that's going to be, and we don't actually know the exact number of houses that could be delivered on the site. So the independent review had a look at the information, ran their own calculations on the basis of an indicative housing mix, and concluded that this development could only deliver 6 affordable units.
I think there's so many unknowns that perhaps they said that that's acceptable at this point, bearing in mind there was going to be a review. I haven't seen the exact wording. I think there's probably a lot in the wording. Thank you.
Can I just ask, Natalie, thank you very much. If there's no further questions have we got any further questions? If there's no further questions for Robert, I'd like you to ask you to retire. Thank you. Wonderful. Now we'll start the debate proper. Councillor Vernon.
Chairman, I'd like to ask one question before anything else. My understanding is that we could be considering today an outline application or a full application, which would allow us to... No, we can't. Okay, that's fine. May I ask why we are discussing outline and access only today then and can't do full? Sorry.
The application that's before us is an outline application only with access considered. All of the matters are reserve matters.
Sorry, I understand that completely, but we could have a full application in front of us. There are a lot of unanswered questions and there are a lot of queries. Whilst I accept that the application in front of us today is an outline for consideration, I would actually question whether it may be better to have a full application rather than considering outline. I mean, sort of I'll continue on with my points now. Obviously, the allocation for 70 houses is in the local plan. So I understand that, and that principle is there. Whilst the principle of development has not been agreed by this committee, the principle is in the local plan that 70 houses exist. And therefore, to me, it would make more sense for us to be considering this as a full application rather than an outline application. However, I fully accept we are here today in an outline application. That would be my first point that I think needs thinking about, because all of the questions that we're raising here today, we all have concerns about. I mean, in particular, the level of Section 106, the level of housing, affordable housing. I mean, frankly, I would have grave concerns about the viability of the project full stop if they're not even able to make their commitment to affordable housing as they should be. I think the fact, and please don't take this the wrong way because I know that the applicant is here, I don't really think it's our concern that they can't meet their financial obligations in terms of affordability of 106, affordable housing contributions, because there is a policy that is in place for a reason. And I would argue that actually, from our point of view as a committee, sorry, if you can't make your project viable, that's not really our problem, quite honestly. But anyway, I would argue if you want to correct me on that, that's fine. I also note in the report that there are a number of statutory consultees who have not responded to the latest consultation, which is a little bit disappointing. In particular, I note the police concerns that were raised on the initial application, but they haven't even come back with the revised highways and access arrangements on this particular application. So I think that needs to be sort of looked at. Tree protection, TPOs, there does seem to be an awful lot of concerns regarding the TPO situation. And the other thing about sort of the, in terms of the principle of development where you're going to provide a bus pass to every resident, which is in the report, how can we condition that in perpetuity? Or is this going to be a one-year only special offer for any new resident? I would have grave concerns about that. Anglia Water consider the FRA and service drainage is not acceptable and it's subject to condition. If I'm being brutally honest, I don't feel we've got enough enough information in here to even give an outline approval. Again, I recognise a lot of it is subject to reserve matters, and I know that's what you're going to say, that this can all come back under reserve matters. But if we go for reserve matters, we've already established that the principle of development is acceptable for up to 70 houses. I don't know whether it's acceptable for 70 houses because we haven't seen a site plan that sort of gives us the sort of underlying principle as to whether it is or not. So, yeah, sorry, not being difficult, but those are my viewpoints and I'd welcome your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. This is one of the inherent issues with outline applications, is that you're asked to make a decision without the full information. It's unfortunately the nature of them. The only matter that's considered at this point is access. What I can do, I'll run through a few things if that's all right. So policy S22 in the Central Lincolnshire local plan so it sets out the target for 25% affordable housing. Do you mind if I just read this extract? So it says the Central Lincolnshire authorities will seek the level of affordable housing on the basis of the above target, so the 25% in this case, but will negotiate with developers if an accurate viability assessment which reflects the recommended approach in the National Planning Policy Framework guidance demonstrate that these cannot be met. So the policy itself has a target of 25%, but does have a caveat that if a development isn't viable, that a lower amount of affordable housing can be delivered. We are comfortable that the applicant submitted a viability assessment that was in accordance with the planning practice guidance. We've had that independently reviewed. And so I think it is open to, within the context of the planning policy, it is possible to agree to a lower amount of affordable housing if you choose to do so, because the planning policy does allow for that. In relation to and also bearing in mind that the policy S77 of the Central Lincolnshire Local Plan allocates a site for 70 dwellings. So having gone through the local plan process, it was determined that this site could accommodate, and it's a could, but could accommodate 70 dwellings. So we're sitting within that framework as well. In relation to the issues you've raised about concerns being raised by the police, it wasn't an objection, there were just issues raised. Some of those we've recommended are included as informatives because they would impact on the subsequent design and layout. One of the matters was they raised concern about pedestrian access in the southern part of the site. Shall I ask if, are we able to have the site plan up, please? And so that's no longer proposed as a pedestrian access. To overcome that concern, they were concerned about it not being a cul-de-sac from a so if any of those one are fine. So in the southwest corner of the site, you can see that there's sort of a little leg that goes out towards Risehome Road. That was originally proposed as an access point for pedestrians and cyclists. So so the fact that the police haven't specifically responded on that point, but that matter has been addressed through a variation in the application. In relation to the TPO, that's, as you'll have seen from the report, that's been a significant issue and concern. The applicant has submitted details confirming that the works can be undertaken whilst protecting those trees. There would be an element of bund removal, but not necessarily the full extent of the bund removal, but the conditions that are imposed, there's a suite of conditions to ensure that those trees are protected. So we're looking at conditions not only to protect the trees, but also conditions in relation to the proposed site levels and how that bund would be managed. And that's all because it's an outline application, because we don't have those details. But by having those conditions in place, it means we can review that once the reserve matters application comes in and make a decision then as to whether 70 dwellings is an acceptable amount. The fact it's described as up to 70 gives us that flexibility at reserve matters stage, that if it was decided that only 65, for instance, I'm just pulling that figure out of the air, but if only 65 could be accommodated, then it allows for that to take place. I hope that offers some reassurance.
Councillor Hill.
If I just may come back on one minor point, I still don't understand why this couldn't be a full application. And I absolutely accept what in front of us today is an outline application for consideration, but there are so many questions. And there will be so many questions. And I'm concerned that when we come back, sort of if this is approved, to a full application, there may be a scenario where, well, that wasn't in reserve matters, so we can't consider that, and we can't consider that. That's what I'm mostly worried about.
Just to clarify, it wouldn't be a full application that was to be submitted, it would be reserve matters. So a full application could be submitted. There were, that's not to say that it couldn't be, but that would sit as a separate mechanism to this mechanism.
Sorry, just clarification. Do you mean it doesn't come back at all because it's reserve matters dealt with elsewhere?
No, sorry, I meant that it's submitted as reserve matters rather than submitted as a full application.
And that comes back here, you said earlier, I think, didn't you?
It would come back to the County Council, yes. Yes, a reserve, if planning permission is granted, if outline planning permission is granted, the reserve matters that are the subject of the outline would come to the County Council for determination.
Just on a clarification of that, would that come to this committee or could it be taken by officers on their delegated powers?
I've just been advised that that would come to committee.
Councillor Redfern.
Just to clarify for me a point about... Sorry, just to clarify from your point about it up to 70, you said, just mentioned it could be 65. Could it be 75 or 80 or 90 dwellings? This would put a lot of problems on the infrastructure, from my point of view.
No, the maximum would be 70 because the description of development is up to 70. So if the applicant wanted to pursue an application for more than 70, they'd have to make a fresh application.
Councillor Billy, is it a clarification question?
No, it's a question about housing, the affordable housing.
Okay, Councillor Hill has been waiting very patiently. Councillor Hill.
Yes, thank you, Joe. I don't think anybody's arguing that this site has been allocated for housing. For me, it all comes down to the numbers of housing. Sorry, I think we either today agree up to 70, and frankly, once that principle is agreed, I can almost guarantee that's what you'll get. So I think to me, it's all about the numbers of housing, and obviously to get the 70, and I'm going to ask Neil now that certainly in policy M11, there's now a conflict, I think, between if you go over 70 houses, you can't satisfy policy M11, which is protecting mineral supply, and at the same time be compliant with the 70 figures which the central Lincolnshire plan has suddenly come up with, which is a bit weird. So to me, although I see there's a paragraph about, oh, well, effectively saying, well, yeah, we've got to protect this, this mineral application, but we'll somehow sort, it's too vague by half. So I don't understand why the applicant can't just clear the rest of the mineral before, because frankly, if there's no way, in my opinion, you could preserve that site. It will be landlocked, and there's no way you can protect the trees. There's no way you can hit all these requirements and have 70 houses. So as far as I'm concerned, 70 houses, this application as it stands should be refused. If it was a minor tweak on one condition or expectation, but we actually, 4 things we're sort of saying, oh, well, we'll live with it. And I don't think reserve matters is going to be cut the mustard, quite frankly, because once you agree the principle of 70, that's what you'll get. So I will be, although I am a great supporter of Cathedral and would like the Cathedral to get as much money as possible, it can't be at the expense of doing the right thing. So I will be voting against this application purely on the grounds that the number of houses being proposed is excessive, and certainly in terms of the mineral emit policy M11 and the other policies, and I would hope that the applicant would come forward with a more sensible number of houses to make this site work. Thank you, Chairman. And I'm happy to propose that.
Councillor Overton, please.
Thank you. I'm minded to second that, but actually the other alternative is to defer this with a view to some more clarification. I haven't yet had my first question answered about from the plan there, which houses would not get built if you were trying to protect the minerals plan, and how many could you then fit in the space available, bearing in mind you've also got those other requirements. My second thought is that they are failing on a number of requirements, that is the open space, the affordable housing and the biodiversity for starters. And it doesn't have to be the affordable housing. If the viability assessment says that there's no profit in this or very little profit in it, which I'm really surprised at, I don't really see why not, but if that was the case, you could choose out of those things which ones you were not going to put a requirement on which ones to have or not have. So I think I'm very unhappy with this application. I don't think we've got enough information here to give permission for up to 70 houses, because we can't see here how they're going to fit in. And also we can't see the impact on the, I'm not sure we've seen sufficient on the impact on the access. I don't know if we've even discussed the access sufficiently, and I'm a bit concerned about that too. Thank you. So suggestion could be to defer, is my point.
Councillor Taylor.
Natalie, please.
Could I ask that the that's got the Central Lincolnshire Local Plan allocation is put up, please. Thank you. That one there, thank you. So hopefully I'll be able to provide a response to both Councillor Hill and Councillor Mrs Overton. So the slide that's on the screen at the moment is the area that's allocated in the Central Lincolnshire Local Plan for residential development. The majority of the quarry site is within that site, and the quarry in relation to that area of the site has been worked out. So there's no...
Sorry, that's not what the report says. There is a section which hasn't been worked out.
Yes, you're absolutely right. That's not within the allocation in the Central Lincolnshire Local Plan. So that's not the boundary of the site. I'm going to move on to the next slide that will show you where the minerals safeguarding area is. So I'm afraid this is really tiny. So we'll go back to the previous slide so that I can show you. So you can see the bit that's highlighted. So do you mind just going back to the one with the really tiny dot? That's all right for the moment. So the really tiny dot in there is the area that's safeguarded in the Minerals Local Plan. You'll see that there's a rectangular area of purple above it that was also safeguarded. That has now been developed at the Sandal Street development. So if we can go back one slide, I'm sorry. If we could go back another one as well. And another, please. Oh, and another, sorry. Yep, okay. So if you have a look in the northeast corner of the site where the water body is shown, that's the only part of this site that's safeguarded in the Minerals Local Plan. At the moment, and this is just indicative, there's no proposed residential, no dwellings proposed in that particular area of the site.
My point is that if you put 70 houses on that site, that top corner where the lake is, it will be landlocked. So effectively, you are removing that from those minerals from the available minerals, because there's no how are you? I know this is indicative, but with 70 houses, it is not possible to get that those remaining limestone minerals to the road, because there'll be a load of houses there. So effectively, you are in conflict with M11. I don't know whether Neil can help us. That's my understanding.
So condition 25 recommends that at the time that the Reserve Matters application comes in, that a minerals assessment is undertaken to establish whether those minerals could be extracted prior to any works to being developed on this site. Now, it is only a very small area.
So, but we could, as part of a condition, to say they need to be extracted before development starts. That would be a more robust response, would it not?
It may not be viable to remove that mineral before development starts, and that's what the mineral assessment would assess. At the moment, because we don't know the layout of the site, we don't know whether any development would be proposed in that location at all. The sterilisation of that mineral will be taken into account through the implementation of that condition, but we do have to be mindful about whether it's viable to extract that mineral, given that it is such a small site. The allocation, or the safeguarding within the Minerals Local Plan, actually that part of the site was part of the safeguarding area for what's now Sandal Street. So it will be considered, but it will be considered in the round as to whether that's acceptable or not.
Come back. All the applicant has to do is just get it cleared, and that the problem goes away. Simple. Before they start developing it.
Mineral extraction doesn't form part of the current application that's before you.
Sorry, the policy M11 is relevant here, is it? So that does mean it is a relevant factor.
Yeah, the safeguarding of the mineral is absolutely a material consideration in the determination of the application, yes. It's just that that's not what's being proposed by the applicant at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with the comments there from Councillor Hill regarding the minerals. So seriously, some concerns there. Again, I had some concerns when I first read this report, and they have actually increased during this debate based on information we are hearing. Some serious damage here to the environment, ecology, questions, concerns regarding trees. And I did speak earlier regarding the affordable housing element. That dramatic reduction is far too much for us to take seriously. It's that 25% shouldn't just be an ambition, that should actually be delivered. And that is, we do need to press the point with that. The report also refers to promoting healthy and safe communities. I can't see where this application does that. So many incomplete statements and unanswered questions. Very little gain for the community, just harm at the moment. I'm actually prepared to second Council's recommendation to refuse. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Hello everyone. I'd just like to just make the point that because this area of land has been allocated in the local plan, on the planning balance, we're going to have a very high threshold to meet in order to refuse. And I believe that some of the points that have been put forward have already been mitigated through conditions as already explained by Natalie. So I just feel that if this committee would like to refuse, we're not beyond the realms of refusing, but we're going to need some more reasons, and maybe some policy conflicts or things that aren't being able to be mitigated, and maybe some evidence to support it, because if not, we risk appeal and costs. Thank you.
Councillor Hill.
It says up to for a very good reason in the Central Lincolnshire plan. And there are several issues here, not just the minerals, as the issue of affordable housing. So I think there is some flexibility. So I'm not convinced at this stage whether it's necessary for me to withdraw my application. I understand your concern, but I think there are. If it was just one factor, I think that would be more difficult to defend. But we are talking about 3 or 4 in terms of getting 70 houses on there. As I said before, protecting the trees, which, although it's all a bit vague, isn't it? So we're going to somehow protect the trees, we're somehow going to protect the viability of policy M11, we're somehow going to... There's no reason why BNG, biodiversity net gain, can't all be delivered on site. And then there's also the open spaces and the environmental factors as well. So there are, I think, 4 pretty valid reasons why it's reasonable for us to... well, some of us, I don't know, some of us might be in favour of it. So I'll take your advice, but I think personally that there is sufficient concern there that, in particular, there's nowhere in, does the Central Links planning policy say that it says 25%? It doesn't say 8%. So again, I think there's some hooks to hang on. I take your advice, but I think personally there is enough in there to justify a refusal, but if you feel we are being unsafe, please say so.
You may.
Thank you. Again, it is just my advice. It is up to this committee whether they choose to take it. But again, with the affordable housing situation, I'd say the NPPF does allow for a viability assessment. So when taking that into account, a reason for refusal based on that is fairly low. Same with the BNG. Again, there is obviously the preference that it is all delivered on site, but again, that can be mitigated through off-site delivery. And again, that's secured through the Section 106 or through conditions. So again, that has been mitigated. So it's just things like that, just to be taking into account on what Natalie has said, that some of the points have been mitigated. And if this committee feels that there are beyond the reasons beyond that to grant refusal, just backing it up with some evidence would also be would really strengthen the argument. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we need to be mindful what we're here to actually for is we are looking at access into the site and up to 70 houses. I know this is, we would normally be looking at a full application, and it would normally be going to a local council for this. So this is very rare for it to be come to us this chamber, and we're normally looking at quarries and TROs and everything else. I do take on board what was said. There's a lot of mitigation within the report, and there's a lot of questions that I know we all want the answers to. Unfortunately, that is not what we can do today, but we can definitely do this next time if it comes to us and it is approved of up to 70, all those questions, and there will be a lot of questions and a lot of mitigation will have to come in, and a lot of conditions I feel that will be put on to what we are going to decide today. So I just want to make everybody here just be aware that I know we want to get more houses in there for social housing and for affordables, but today we are looking at 70 properties, up to 70 properties on an allocated site that requires access. So with that, please, next member.
Councillor Overton, please.
Thank you very much. We're clearly not content with this application because it conflicts with policies, does conflict with M11, creating a landlocked corner, which therefore it's a clear conflict. Yes, it was in the layout of the original local plan, but that doesn't mean you can build on it. It doesn't mean, just having a block on the plan doesn't mean you can definitely do it. You can't, you still have to fulfill planning requirements. And that's why we're here today with it. Otherwise, it would have just gone through anyway. So it also conflicts with our policies on open space, particularly if you took out that piece of minerals that's for mineral extraction, that conflicting piece. If you took that out, there'd be even less open space. Presuming they're calling that lake open space, and presumably it's also a collection for water, which most developments need. So if you took that space out, then you need to store the water somewhere, I guess, the flood issues. I don't know, there may be another reason for it being there. Normally we do see applications with an area to collect water as necessary. So then the next part was the affordable housing. And you say that that's okay to only have 6 because there's the viability assessment. Well, where is the viability assessment? The government made a statement that they must now be available for us to see. So one reason for deferring it would be so that we can see that viability assessment. And I think that would be reasonable. And then the next one was the biodiversity, which is also not on site. And this is it is said to be a good site. I mean, I haven't studied it myself, but I see the comments from the Wildlife Trust, which are quite negative in that they don't feel there's sufficient information, but I gather from what you said that some more had been provided since. So I think I am not content with this as it is. 2 things we could do. One is to defer it, asking for the viability assessment and also any other issues. Secondly, we could ask for the whole application to come together as one. I know we've done that on districts before. We've said, can we have it as one? If the developer's not going to agree to that, then we're left with deferring it. And I would propose that. Thank you.
I was going to say, Chairman, I mean, in terms of, obviously, that there's no way that we can ask the developer now to bring forward a full application. This is the application that's before us, and this is what we've got to determine. So it's the deferment is an opportunity if you feel that it would help in your decision making to have some of the answers that some of the questions that you've asked today to be answered. Well, we can take that away and see if we can do that for you for next time if you feel that there are the number of uncertainties that you've identified. But clearly, in terms of our recommendation, we feel it is a strong and robust recommendation for approval for this development because of the reasons that have been set out. But there is that possibility to defer it if that would make members more comfortable.
Thank you.
Chairman, may I just ask about deferral? So technically today we are only here to consider the establishment, or sort of the principle of having 70 dwellings on this site, up to 70 dwellings, and the access. I'm presuming that the only grounds we could divert on are the principle of having up to 70, but some of the information that we require is going to be subject to reservist matters application, which I fully appreciate. So I'm not sure whether we would have legitimate grounds for deferral, and I'd welcome legal advice on that. Thank you.
Yes, the grounds for deferral would need to be based on the application that's in front of you today, so the outline. So highways access, for example, or if you're missing some of the consultee reports, the viability assessment, those would be absolutely fine reasons for deferral, but yeah, anything that would be subject to the reserves matters would not be relevant here.
And just to confirm,
yes,
the affordable housing contribution would be subject to reserve matters, not subject to this outline application.
Yeah, the actual, because we're going by the viability assessment, I mean, I'm under the impression you could on the outline basis, if you wanted to view the viability assessment, then that would be one reason for the deferral.
Could I just address Councillor Mr Overton's point about the open space? The applicant has demonstrated that there is sufficient room within this site to deliver a policy requirement amount of open space, with the addition of a financial contribution towards playing fields. So I just wanted to clarify that was
yes,
policy compliant.
Yeah, I did get that, thank you, yes. The question was whether it was on site, and you know, you've got a lot of people living there. Clearly they would like some open space, especially if they've got families. Thank you.
Yeah. The only element off-site it would be playing fields. Everything else could be delivered on site.
Thank you.
Councillor Hill, please.
Yeah, just I did have I would be interested to know exactly what the boundary of the remaining mineral extraction is, because it does strike me if you're going to create a pond, you're going to be digging out that area, which in effect will be removing. So is the pond the actual amount? Do we know what the exact boundary of the remaining mineral limestone left is?
No, I don't have that
Know,
information.
surely.
We know where the resource is identified, so we know on the safeguarding plan, there's a line around the boundary. What I don't know is the precise details of what that resource entails.
We are the mineral authority, so we should know. I don't think you should know, but the council should know.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why we've asked for this mineral assessment. So we know that there is mineral still in that area. We don't know exactly how much and how deep it is, and that's why the mineral assessment, if that was obviously undertaken, that would then set out exactly how much is there and how much and the viability for that to be removed. So without that assessment, we don't know the exact details, and that's why that would be required to be undertaken by the applicant to give that clarification.
Thank you. Councillor Bunny, please.
Thank you. Having obviously listened to this debate, and there's obviously a lot of concerns to do around the minerals and so on, I am actually personally incredibly concerned about the number of affordable housing, and I think I would like to see that report and what actually the report was asked to do, because it might be to confirm this number, or was it how many could it support. I think we look a lot at government requirements at the moment for more housing throughout the area. We've got houses being built, but not necessarily what is required, and so there's two parts to it. So I think at this stage, I would be happy to second for the deferral, particularly on the fact that we need more information about the affordable housing, and if there was any opportunity to bring in more information about the minerals on that, I think that would be an appropriate move. So I'm happy to second Councillor Overton's motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bunny. I am mindful of how long this debate been going on, and we've already had now two propositions moved and seconded. The first one was to move from Councillor Hill refusal on the housing numbers, which is at odds with the local policy, biodiversity net gain, and also the mineral extraction. We also have on the table now a deferment from Councillor Overton, which is seconded by Councillor Bunny, on wishing to see the viability report. Also, I believe missing responses from statutory consultees. I think that's fine. It was mentioned that not all consultees looked at the second part, but that's fine. And the other one was the mineral assessment. They would like to view that as well, if that's something it can be. But I will go back to Councillor Overton just to clarify, as it's been seconded by Councillor Bunny, what was your reasons for deferment?
So, Chairman, just in terms of the mineral assessment, that is not something that we have that information now, and that wouldn't be something we can ask the applicant to provide. So the mineral side of things we can't reasonably ask for at this stage.
So, Councillor Overton, so on your...
Maybe there may be some more discussion, I think. At the moment, we've got a deferral on the table. The exact reasons, I think we're just collating now. Thank you.
Councillor Hill, did you want to come back?
To remind me, actually, if it's, say it was refused, the applicant would then have, I know with normal application, the applicant has an opportunity to come back with a revise. So what, let's say it was refused, and the applicant then said, well, we'll come back with a revise. Is that a viable, can that be done? So the applicant could say, yes, I can see why I can mitigate some of the concerns and come back. Would that be possible, or would it require a new application?
If planning permission is refused, it would require a new application.
So they can't come back with an amended?
Not if planning permission's been refused, no. They could come back with an amended proposal as a new application, but it would be a whole new application. It's not, if planning permission is refused, they could appeal, but...
Normally, I'm thinking about my district, when I go, it's refused, then it comes back in an amended form, which sometimes is acceptable to the committee.
It would have to be submitted as a brand new application.
With the fee as well?
Yes. Yes, there's no, there used to be what was known as a free go, but there's no free go on refusals anymore, so it would be a brand new application.
Councillor Redfern, please.
But if it's a deferral, that would be a different thing. So the deferral, they could just come back. So in effect, it's what Councillor Hill was asking for, in the sense that there would not have to be another application.
That's correct, yes.
I think, just for clarification, that would be in relation to some of the matters that we would decide today. So, you know, you can vary. There's only so many things you can do with a deferral, which would be different to obviously a new application. So it would be restricted in terms of what would be able to come back.
Yeah, I understand that, but I think there is still too many things that are too vague, and I think that we should have more information put in front of us so we could make a better decision. We've got to make the right decision.
Sorry, Myra. Thank you, Chairman. Whilst I understand your point, Councillor, this is an outline application, so there are going to be a lot of unknowns at this stage. So when considering the reasons for deferral, it'd be the reasons that I mentioned earlier, which are relevant to this application in front of you today. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Bean.
Hello, thank you. At last, I did ask to speak quite some time ago. I have quite a number of reservations regarding this application. The biodiversity net gain, currently it already states in this document that they want to base the biodiversity net gain on the current condition of the site when the site is still not fully restored, and the reason is they've already stated that they don't see that this being economically viable if they have to base the biodiversity net gain figure on the fully restored site. Well, I'm sorry, but I don't see that that's our problem. As part of the original agreement for the mineral extraction, a restoration plan was put in sight to create calcareous grassland, which is a high value environment, and in this document it says if it is restored to calcareous grassland, that would make the application non-viable economically. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not our problem. the old quarry should have been restored to the calcareous grassland, and any biodiversity net gain should be based on that. I also have serious reservations about the mineral extraction. We need to make absolutely certain we know where we're going with that before we agree to anything. Because the last thing I want to do is agree to an application for a housing estate, and then later on those poor residents who paid their good money for their houses suddenly find they've got, oh yes, we're just going to build a quarry in the middle of your housing estate. So that's something else that needs addressing. Then you've got the Central Lincolnshire Local Plan, which indicates 40 dwellings instead of 70 with 25%. That's what it says in this document. Well, I'm sorry, but I read it earlier and that's what it said in the document. So I'm very concerned about that as well. Then there's the matter of the tree protection orders. You've got trees growing in bunds. They're talking about removing the bunds. How do you take the soil out from around the bottom of a tree without killing it? So I've got serious reservations about the trees as well. As far as I'm concerned, this application, we really don't have enough information to clarify all these individual points to make a decision. I know it's only an outline planning application for access, but once we grant the application for access, that's like the toe in the door. Oh, well, you've given us access, so now we're just going to carry on and do this. I'm sorry, but as far as I'm concerned, I think the whole matter needs to be deferred until we've got these exact explanations as to what we're going to do with all these different things before we make a decision.
Just to address your first point in relation to the restoration of the site being to calcareous grassland and nature conservation, that has been taken into account, and I think it's in paragraphs 25 to 44 of the committee report. It does set out that that is a material consideration. It's a material consideration that the quarry won't have been fully restored and that the BNG that could potentially have been realised won't have been realised, and so that has been taken into account in the recommendation before you.
So if I could just come back on that, so you agree that is a material concern?
It's a material consideration, yes. Yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely. In relation to the mineral extraction, at the moment, because it is an outline application and the layout and scale and appearance of the development isn't known, we don't know whether any development would be proposed to take place in the area that's safeguarded. So that's an unknown, and that's the nature of an outline application. In relation to the central...
Can I just come back on that as well? I'm not really worried about the area where the mineral extraction is going to take place. I'm more concerned about the residents who will have to live with all the vehicles and heavy machinery driving through the middle of their estate.
There would be a mineral assessment as part of one of the conditions if planning permission was to be granted, and if it was determined that it was feasible and viable to extract that mineral prior to the development of the housing, then that would be the logical order for that to take place. But there is a condition that allows that to be taken into account. Just in relation to the Central Lincolnshire Local Plan, the site in the draft Central Lincolnshire Local Plan was proposed to be allocated for 40 dwellings, but in the adopted Central Lincolnshire Local Plan, it's actually been allocated for 70 dwellings under Policy S77.
Just to come back on that as well, we've already discussed one badly planned housing estate with insufficient parking. So we need to make sure that if we do approve this, that the plan accounts for sufficient parking for residents, because most residents these days have 2 vehicles.
Okay, I think we're straying into the realms again of what would normally be a full application. I think we've debated this quite fully, and we do have a proposal on the table to reject it, which has been, say, proposed by Councillor Hill and seconded by Councillor Taylor. I feel that we ought to put that to the vote, and depending on how that happens, then we'll look at the refusal afterwards.
I think you have to do the deferral first.
No,
technically.
Was proposed first by Councillor Hill and then it's seconded by Councillor Taylor before before it was your proposal was seconded for refusal. So we have to take them in order.
Unless you amend it.
Yeah, we'll have to take it in
Unless
order.
you amend it.
So therefore, we put forward then the proposal by Councillor Hill to go against the recommendation for refusal based on housing number, the biodiversity net gain and mineral extraction. All those in favour of that proposal, please put your hand up. Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, so that proposal has fallen. Then moving on to the second proposal, we have a deferment which has been proposed by Councillor Overton and seconded by Councillor Bunny. We have viability report, which we'd like to see there. Was there anything else that you wish to add, please?
Yes, thank you very much. I think actually it's similar grounds, and we maybe just should adopt those. We're talking about being clear on where the point about firstly being clear about the mineral position, because it might mean that you have not got much land, you've got less land available. So we would need to know that, or find out something about at least where it's marked on the map, so we can see that. And then secondly, if you look at the viability assessment, it affects the other things. So it affects the affordable housing, it affects the money to the NHS actually, is also on there as well, and the open space. So I just ask if and the biodiversity, that's right, thank you. So those are the things that we have discussed, that we've said we're all concerned about, and we'd like to see a bit more detail as to how that's going to happen. And that obviously the biodiversity would include the trees, of course, as well. So we'd just like to see how that all fits together. Thank you.
Okay, have officers got
Well, I just think
that down? Councillor Hill.
We are dealing with an outline planning permission, so obviously the view that it was refused has fallen. I don't think what's been described as a justification for deferral is valid, because most of what was described would be dealt with under reserved matters. But so I think if those who want to, which I have sympathy with, who want to defer this, need to come up with some other ideas as to what is a reasonable way for a deferment.
Councillor Bunny,
I understand what Councillor Hill is saying, but I think my biggest concern is to do with the affordable housing. We haven't had sight of that report and which way it was written, and I understand that we have that right. So it's looking at that to make a confirmation on the number of affordable housing and presumably the number of housing. I'm also concerned with the biodiversity comments, which we've heard, that they are being done they should be done for the whole site and not just part of the site. So we just want a clarification on that particular piece of information and what that would actually mean in the long run. So those are the two main things I think we're coming through on.
Sorry, so just for clarity, we're after the viability assessment, so we can understand how it's calculated, and that's one of the reasons for deferral, and the biodiversity net gain. Could you just clarify that?
We're just a bit concerned whether it's for the full site or the site without the quarry, or and that sort of thing. So that seemed to be the concern that I think Councillor Bean was putting forward. It's a percent. Perhaps I've got that wrong.
I was putting forward the point that the biodiversity gain needs to be based on the fully restored quarry, not as it stands at the moment.
Yeah, sorry, much better put than mine.
Okay. In the meantime, Councillor Lee does want to...
It's just a very quick question. On page 51 of the agenda, the policy talks about boosting the supply of homes, including affordable housing, to meet an area's identified need. I've told you what the need is. It's social rent. So if you're going to look at the affordable housing, I would ask that you look. We do not need shared ownership. We need social housing, because there's nearly 3,000 people on that waiting list.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. And again, that would probably be something that we'd look at when it came to reserve matters and came back to us. This is purely on 70 properties, and we don't know what they're going to be yet, and the access into the site. But that is why we have reserve matters, and that's when we'll come back and debate it. Right now, we've got viability report, which be seen, and some biodiversity which I think we've actually covered now. It was going to be on what the site would have been had it done its full course. So we are looking at a deferral on citing the viability report, and I'm correct in thinking when it comes back, that is the only thing that we can then comment on when it comes back to Chamber.
Yes, because that would be what's left outstanding. So I just want to make sure that this committee is fully understanding that, because obviously there was mention of a deferral for a potential site visit as well. I wasn't too sure if that needed to be further discussed for the access or anything like that. And as long as councillors are happy, then and they fully understand that point, then yes, that's how we move it forward.
Just to clarify, of the list, you're saying that the only thing we can come back on is the access and the viability. Okay, is that what you're saying?
Sorry, if you add the access in as a reason for deferral, then yes. If not, the reason for deferral would be just so this committee to review the viability assessment, and that would be the only point that would need to be discussed when it comes back to committee. So everything else would be assumed to be accepted.
Of the list we raised, are you telling me legally that the only one that we can put as a reason for deferral? No, thank you.
No, sorry, you can put forward further reasons, providing they are subject just to the outline matter and don't go into the reserves matters. That's
I did say that the list that was put forward earlier would be useful to include, because we've had that discussion. That is what people have said they're concerned about. So let's look at those things, and that would include the other ones, which is the biodiversity and the type of affordable housing. And I still don't feel we've got quite enough on the access, but fair enough on that.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're starting to go into the reserves matter, especially with like the types of affordable housing and things like that. And the biodiversity net, again, Natalie did answer earlier, but I'm sure she could explain that to you again if it's necessary, which is why we've come down to just the viability assessment.
So of the list that's been mentioned, the only thing you think we can legally bring back is the viability or the access?
Yes, and unless you feel that, explain to me that you'd like anything else further explaining by either myself or Natalie or Neil, we can, but yes, as it currently stands, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Bean, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I'd also like it deferred so we can see the mineral extraction report.
There isn't a mineral extraction report. That wouldn't be required until if the permission is granted, then there would be a condition which requires a mineral assessment report to be provided at that stage. So that can't be required because it doesn't exist at this time, and it wouldn't be reasonable to ask the developer to do it at this stage.
Right, I understand what you're saying, but I'm still extremely concerned that at some point in the future we're going to have heavy vehicles driving through a residential estate.
Well, it's not something that we can ask for at this time because you know, that wouldn't be reasonable to do so. I suppose it comes back to if the committee obviously have been advised of the things that are available at this stage through an outline. If they're not content with that, then that's when it sort of goes back towards the refusal. It's not reasonable to ask the developer to bring things forward in an outline which would normally be dealt with as a full application or for reserve matters.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. In that case, is it covered under the 106 agreement?
It's covered as a planning condition. I think it's condition 25.
As long as it's covered under the 106 agreement and that is enforceable.
It's not the section 106 agreement, it's a planning condition.
Well, as long as, and it's going to come back to this council. Very well.
Thank you. I think then in that case then, sorry, Councillor Lee. Councillor Lee,
I just want to ask you, if it is deferred and it comes back, can I have legal clarification, please, that should committee be minded to refuse it, they can refuse it on any material planning grounds and not just the things that are brought back to committee next time?
No, as I said earlier, this committee is deemed to be accepting anything that is not being deferred.
Sorry, I couldn't hear any of that.
Can you hear me now? Okay. No, as I said earlier, so this committee is going to be accepting anything that is not deferred. So when it comes back for deferral, we couldn't bring back the things that have already been agreed.
So they couldn't refuse it then, no?
They wouldn't be able to refuse it on the things that have been agreed today.
Okay, so
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, I'm not sure I'm really entirely clear in that case, because we have said that we are unhappy about the number of houses, so that has to be brought back. We've said about the affordability, that which is the viability assessment and the knock-on impacts of that, which is the affordable housing. So actually, there'll be quite a lot of things that come into that. But I recognise that you're saying that many of those reserve matters, but nevertheless, they are impacted by the things that we're asking for. Thank you.
absolutely, Councillor Overton. I think the point is it's up to 70. A full application could come in for 20 houses. You know, we don't know what the full application will be, what the reserve matters are. It is up to 70. And I think we've got to the point where it's been moved by Councillor Overton to defer on the not seeing the viability report. Wishing to see the viability report, sorry, and it's been seconded by Councillor Bunny. I therefore would like to put that to a vote. All those in favour for deferment on those matters, please raise your hands. Okay, any against? Okay, any abstentions? So that's carried and it will be deferred for another occasion. Thank you very much. I am mindful that we've been sat here a little while. Can I call that we're going to have a very, very quick comfort break of 5 minutes, if that's okay? And I will see you back at the chamber in 5 minutes' time at 10 to 1. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. We now move on to our final agenda item of this meeting, item 5.2, which is for reprofiling of land, part retrospective to a vary condition of 5 and 15A of the Planning Permission, E-N 163-2338-14 for a reservation of the restoration profile of the quarry to ensure the safety of historic chalk face and associated minor updates to the approved scheme of restoration landscaping at South Thornsby Quarry, Greenfield Lane, South Thornsby. The report recommends that following consideration of the relevant development plan policy and the comments received through consultation and publicly policy, it is recommended that conditional planning permission be granted for both planning applications. I would like to invite Eloise Shibar, Senior Planning Officer, to introduce the report. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, councillors. Could I have the first slide, please? Thank you. South Thoresby Quarry is a historic and active chalk quarry. An initial extension was granted back in 1968. There are currently 2 active planning permissions on the site, one for the extraction of chalk utilising imported soils for restoration, and the other to import and process inert waste material of up to 30,000 tonnes per annum. The approved restoration of the site is native broad-leaved woodland and species-rich chalk grassland habitat, reed bed and wet woodland. Next slide, please. South Thoresby lies to the east of the A16, which is 5 kilometres west of Alford and 11 kilometres south of Louth. The quarry is located to the northeast of the village and lies adjacent to, but not within, the boundary of the Lincolnshire Wolds National Landscape Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, which will be referred to as the AONB from this point forward. The quarry covers an area of approximately 14.4 hectares. Access to the quarry is gained from the A16 to the southwest and passes through the villages of Aby and Claythorpe before connecting to the B1373 to the northeast. 4 residential properties are in close proximity to the site. However, views from the properties into the site are screened by banks and established tree planting. The site is also located within Flood Zone 1, which has the lowest probability of flooding. Next slide, please. 2 applications have been submitted by GBM Waste Management for planning permission. The applications have been submitted following the outcome of a geotechnical assessment of the quarry faces, which identifies several hazards. Application A is the smaller area identified on the aerial photo, and application B is the larger area. Application A is a retrospective application seeking a small extension measuring approximately 0.81 of a hectare. The area within the application boundary proposes to regularise works already undertaken, which increase the batter of the chalk face to a gradient that ensures stability of the quarry faces. It is not proposed to extract or export mineral or import any waste as part of this proposal. Works would not generate additional vehicle movements. The larger red line area in the main mineral extraction, is the main mineral extraction area relating to application B, which is a Section 73 application to vary conditions 5 and 15A of an existing planning permission to revise the restoration profile of the quarry to ensure the safety of historic chalk faces and associated minor updates to the approved scheme of restoration. Next slide, please. As mentioned, the geotechnical assessment identified several hazards, and it's recommended that stabilisation works are required to ensure long-term safety and stability at the quarry. The hazards identified have the potential for slippage, which has already taken place on the eastern chalk face as shown on the slide. As part of the safety works, the applicant proposes to backfill against the face using soils. The use of inert fill materials tipped at an appropriate gradient ensures slope stability and allows them to become vegetated and enhance restoration potential. This approach would ensure that the quarry is considered safe in the long term, which is a requirement of the quarry's regulations. Imported soils would assist with backfilling operations and achieving the final restoration of the site.
In addition to the existing future quarry fines, the applicant estimates that an additional 145,000 tonnes of material is required to be imported to the site to achieve the proposed profile. Over the remaining consented 17 years of the site, this equates to approximately 8,000 tonnes per annum, which is roughly one 20-tonne HGV vehicle movement per day. Next slide, please. The revised restoration proposals are not too dissimilar to those already permitted and would provide a mixture of different habitats, including broadleaf woodland, species-rich chalk grassland, reed bed and wet woodland, as identified on the slide. This approach is supported by the Lincolnshire Wolds AONB officer. The Lincolnshire Wolds AONB officer has not objected to the proposal. However, they have requested that all vehicles should be sheeted when travelling to and from the site, which we can condition. They have also raised concerns with regards to additional HGV movements from the proposed site. The Highways Authority have confirmed that the development would not be expected to have an unacceptable impact upon highway safety or a severe residual cumulative impact upon the local highway network. The lead local flood authority have confirmed that the proposed development is not expected to increase surface water risk and therefore would not result in any unacceptable impact. Being located adjacent to the Lincolnshire Wolds AONB, the AONB officer has commented in relation to the likelihood of the proposed development having the potential to impact the views into and out of the national landscape. However, this site is an existing quarry void that does require restoration. The proposal seeks to grade material along the quarry face, remaining below the highest contour of the already approved scheme. It is not considered that the proposal would have any more of an adverse impact on the AONB than that already approved. As set out in the report, one local objection has been received. The applications reflect a balanced and forward-looking strategy that support the stabilisation of the quarry faces and continue to deliver a nature conservation-based restoration scheme. Following an assessment of the responses from statutory and non-statutory consultees and the supporting application documents, it is considered that the development would not adversely impact the local and surrounding area or the highway. It is considered that the proposal promotes and accords with the relevant objectives of the National Planning Policy Framework, National Planning Policy for Waste, and sufficiently aligns with the policies that form the local development plan. And therefore it is my recommendation that both applications are approved subject to the conditions in the report, with the exception of conditions 2 and 4 for application A, which should be updated to reflect the part retrospective of the nature of the application. It is proposed to amend the wording of condition 2 from prior to the commencement of the development to no further works shall be carried out until the means of delivering at least 10% biodiversity net gain shall be delivered to and agreed in writing by the County Planning Authority. And condition 4, which currently states from where the required diversity net gain of at least 10% is to be delivered on site, prior to the commencement of development, a habitat management monitoring plan shall be submitted to and approved by the County Planning Authority, should be amended to where the required biodiversity net gain of at least 10% to be delivered on site, no further works shall be carried out until a habitat management and monitoring plan has been submitted to and approved in writing by the County Planning Authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Eloise, for your presentation. We have one registered speaker on this item, and I'd like to invite the agent, James Cook, to speak in support of the application and to address the committee.
Thank you. Yeah, ready. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. These planning applications are a direct response to an identified health and safety concern at South Thoresby Quarry. An independent geotechnical assessment carried out by Greenfield Enviro Limited found significant hazards on the historical eastern and southeastern faces of the quarry. In summary, the assessment identified the hazard as being a combination of the naturally fractured nature of the site's geology and the weathering effects, which will lead to toppling of the faces and crest failures. The location of these hazards means that very real potential of affecting third-party land to the east and south of the site. Land to the east is agricultural land, and to the south is a public highway, which is Hague Lane. Members of the Planning Committee will be aware there is already a scheme of restoration in place for South Thoresby Quarry, which was approved in 2016. The objective of this approved scheme is largely biodiversity enhancement of the site. It does not make provision for the stabilising of these historic faces. It did, however, ensure that current faces along the southern and southwestern boundaries will not present such stability issues, as these faces are not as steep as the historic ones, and benches have been retained in those faces to reduce the height. The planning application presents several options to stabilise the faces, including mesh, bolting and spray concrete, but the application determined that face backfilling, the use of materials tipped against the faces, will be the most deliverable of these options considered. This face backfilling approach is essentially a continuation of the currently consented operations on site, but you will see that the batter or the slope will be coming up higher up the face along the eastern and southeastern boundary of the quarry. Having the slope reaching higher up the face will need additional material on site. Through detailed modelling of the site, it is estimated that approximately 81,000 cubic metres or 145,000 tonnes of material will be needed to achieve the proposed levels. This material will be the same as that currently imported to the site under the existing consent. To import this additional material, it is expected that current vehicle movements to and from the site would continue. It should be noted that the existing consent does not have a limit on the number of vehicles that can visit the site. Whilst it is proposed to revise the restoration levels on site, it is not the intention to materially change the scheme of restoration and landscaping from that approved. In summary, the proposal seeks to ensure that the historic faces of the quarry are stabilised to prevent third-party land effectively falling into the site. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution. Does any member have any questions of clarification, please? Councillor Overton.
Thank you for that. I think you did look at different options, and as you said, the wire and bolt, which is what I've seen most commonly used to hold up a face, but you prefer to use this, and obviously it involves, did you say 120 vehicles a day, I think I heard, or something? I didn't quite hear how many more extra vehicles are required. And just to check that that's what's proposed. And I was looking at the different options, why you chose that one. Thank you.
Just to clarify, the vehicle movements, on average, it works out about one a day, which is effectively what happens at the moment. There will be variations in that because the material that is currently brought to site is on more like a campaign basis. So if there's a particular job somewhere, you might get 2 or 3 a day, you might get 4 or 5. Some days you might not get any for months. This time of year, the site is effectively closed because of the weather. So you don't tend to get much anyway during the winter. In terms of the options that's been considered, the other ones, the ones that we looked at was called drapery options. So basically you're covering the faces with different types of, whether it's mesh or you're actually bolting the faces securely together. The problem with that is twofold, really. One is significant cost. We're talking millions to do that over the size of the site. And also, there's a maintenance thing here, because once you have this quite heavily involved infrastructure on site, metal, steel bars going in, lots of wire mesh all over the faces, you are then obligated to maintain that. So there is this continued maintenance of those various options, which, to be quite honest, will go beyond the period of aftercare. The other thing is, if we go down those routes, concrete, using shotcrete as they call it, or mesh, There's also a biodiversity issue in there as well. So, you know, you are covering the faces that could be used for different types of biodiversity, fauna, that sort of thing. So backfilling with materials, effectively pushing material up against the face of the quarry, sort of a one hit, as long as the vegetation, the surface of that is maintained, then you're pretty much good to go in perpetuity, to be honest.
Thank you. If I may, Chairman, there are some faces which are considered geologically significant, and I guess this isn't one of them, otherwise you wouldn't be covering it up, I guess. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the ones that you're probably talking about are the historic faces, and they are on the eastern side, but I believe they're a little bit further up. So we're not looking to cover the entirety of those eastern faces. It is the ones that are sort of the lower half of the eastern face, effectively. That's what we're talking about. So, but yeah, you are right. There are some interest on site.
Wondered if somebody might look at it first, which would be good.
Thank you. Councillor Bean.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to say, I mean, I studied geology, so I understand the principles of the site. And basically, as a chalk quarry, the mineral is water soluble, isn't it? So it's just going to keep washing out and collapsing, and then you get the frost fracturing as well, because it's a soft stone. So if we don't do something with it, then basically the quarry sides are going to spread as it collapses in. So we do need to do something, and I think bolting mesh to it, one, it's unsightly, two, it's not very biodiverse friendly, three, on such a soft stone, I'm not sure it's practical. Throwing concrete at it, again, not something I'd appreciate. So I think you've gone down the best route with backfilling against the sites, because it covers it up, so it protects it from the weather, stops the frost fracturing to a certain extent, stops the weathering, and it also support the bank to stop it spreading. So I'd like to propose that we support the recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, we'll get to that bit in 2 seconds. Just an ask question. I've got one question just to ask. The material, where is it coming from, and is there any contaminants within that material, please?
The material that's used on site effectively can come in by two routes. One, the operator operates a number of depots in the local area. They've got a large depot in Louth. So material will be brought there, sorted. The material that comes on there will be worked under an environmental permit. So there'll be checks in place to make sure that it is clean, effectively. And there's also the direct route to site as well. Planning officer mentioned that there is a consent in place for recycling facility there, so there can be direct deliveries to site where it is processed. So there is an element of recycling on site where the residual material from that process can then be delivered onto the quarry faces effectively. I think in terms of the types of material, I mean, these are particularly effectively from muck shifting jobs, effectively, in the local area. It's not in the operator's interest to travel miles and miles and miles because it's not cost effective. So this is material that will originate from the localish area, I would say.
Wonderful. Thank you for that clarification. If there are no other questions, please may I ask you to retire back to the chamber and we'll continue with the debate. Thank you.
Is there any other questions?
Councillor Overton?
It's more of a comment, actually. I think it is to be supported. And I was just looking at the comments from Swaby Parish Council, and I think they have actually been answered. One was a point about whether it was needed, whether the original needed to be amended, and I think that has been answered, that there is a safety issue here, and it's not going to disadvantage the final restoration benefits, which was the other concern. The water from the highway is probably not their problem. And then the impact of the vehicle movements, and I think we were saying that is within what they're allowed to do anyway. So it does seem that the concerns have been responded to here. Personally, I'd like to treat it like an archaeological site and have somebody do a condition where they do a survey first. But I guess that we don't normally do that, so I guess that might be pushing it too far. But there's probably something really interesting there with some maybe interesting fossils that want looking at. So thanks very much. So I support it, thank you, with those providers.
Thank you. I think, yes, safety must be paramount with any of these applications, and a 22-metre high rock face that could potentially fall, it needs to be supported and looked after. Councillor Overton, did you move or did you?
I should propose. I didn't actually use the word. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Yes, so Councillor Overton has moved the proposal. I'm happy to second it, and therefore I'll take it to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. It is for both applications, just to make sure, and you are happy to...
Thank you, Chairman, yes.
Did you move, Councillor Bean? Right, so for clarification, Councillor Bean has moved. Councillor Overton, second?
Seconded, yes.
Wonderful. In that case then, we'll take that to the vote. This is for both applications, taken together as one. All those in favour? I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. That has been carried. And that now concludes the business of the meeting. We will shortly have a training session following this on minerals and waste local plan. I would like to encourage all members to come back to the chamber for that meeting. We will have a similar council development event on biodiversity net gain after our next meeting on the 12th of January 2026. If you have not received an invite, please speak to Andrew, who will send you over an invite. And I would like to, I know it's the 1st December and it's very, very early, but I'd like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And thank you for your attendance. And we close the meeting at 1:15 p.m. Thank you so much. Take care.